So in this module, we're going to cover a concept called elasticity, which is going to have a couple really important applications to both revenue as well as excise taxes, which we'll cover at the end of the chapter. So let's kind of introduce this topic by thinking about a scenario. So let's say that you're hired by MLSC to be in charge of concession prices at TFC games, Toronto Football Club games. So imagine you are hired to set concession prices at ML, or I should say, I guess we should say at TFC games. At TFC games. Your boss wants to increase revenues to go up. So your boss really wants revenues to go up, and you're in charge of making this happen. So you can change the prices. So you know that changing, this is delta-ing for changing, so you know that changing prices will influence quantity demanded, right? Because of this law of demand. So if you increase prices, quantity demanded goes down. So there's kind of two things happening, right? The amount that we're going to sell, the quantity demanded, is going to go down, but the price we get for each one we sell has gone up. We also know if we lower the price, then the quantity demanded is going to go up. So we're not going to make as much per unit, but maybe we sell more units. So think of it as, if we draw a little graph out here with our demand curve, so if we have this price right here, let's call it P1 and QD1. If we raise the prices to, for instance, to P2, our quantity demanded goes down, right? And we know our total revenue, or maybe we're just going to learn that right now, our total revenue is price times quantity. I hope that makes sense. The revenue that you bring in is how many you sell times the price. And so for the P2, it's going to be this big rectangle. Price P2 times Q2D would be this amount of revenue, assuming we sold Q2D. And then it's going to be this orange rectangle if it was the lower price. So we see these kind of two effects happening when we change the price. So if we raise the price, the quantity demand is going to go down, which means that we're making, we're bringing in more revenue per unit, but we're selling less of them. And so what happens in total revenue is going to depend on kind of which of these effects is bigger. Is the price effect bigger? The fact that we get more per unit bigger? Or is the fact that we sell less units going to dominate that effect? That we sell so many less units that our revenue actually goes down when we raise our prices. It's not clear which of these effects are bigger, and that's going to rely on elasticity. So let's look at a couple different demand curves to see that it's related to slope, but it's not exactly equal to the slope. Before we draw those demand curves, let's just make sure we're all on the same page about what elasticity is. So the basic idea of elasticity. Because we're going to calculate kind of different elasticities. That's one example to do with the price and the demand curve and quantity demanded. But in general, what elasticity is kind of capturing is how responsive one thing is, one variable is, to a change in another variable. So elasticity measures the responsiveness of one variable to changes in another. Example, the responsiveness of QD to changes, again, delta is supposed to be changes in price. So that's the one we just kind of talked about. So one measure or one application of this idea of elasticity is measuring the responsiveness and quantity demanded to changes in price. But there's other elasticities we might be interested in as well. In particular here, elasticity is going to be a numerical measure. So we're going to get a number from this. Of, let's use responsiveness again, of responsiveness of quantity demand or quantity supplied to changes in one of its determinants. So we learned about determinants of supply and demand before. So for example, again, price, income, price of other goods. So that's what elasticity is. It's this numerical measure of the responsiveness of quantity demanded or quantity supplied to changes in one of these determinants that we talked about of supply and demand, and quantity supplied and quantity demand. For instance, price, income, price of other goods, those kind of things.